about these later, but there was an inspection held last autumn into the Wellbourne plan, and there was also an inspection held into the development plan for the remainder of Fareham, and that was looking at, in both those plans, at both housing issues and employment issues, and all of the policies which relate to how the planning committee deals with planning applications, whether they're porches, extensions, housing estates, whatever it might be. All of those policies have been tested out at a public inquiry, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that presently. We also had a planning application submitted by the Borough Council to the Borough Council for a new leisure centre in the west of the borough, in fact on part of the old Cold East Hospital site. It's known as Holly Hill Leisure Centre, and that has been approved as well by the council. Again, I'll tell you a little bit more about what's in that in a few minutes. Rather closer to home here though, Fareham Leisure Centre, and we've had a £1.5 million project there to completely refurbish the pools and the changing room. In fact, if you can make out the picture, the young lady in the bottom right, Rebecca Adlington, the Olympic gold medal swimmer, came to open those facilities for us a little while ago. And the, as I said, changing rooms and pools saw improvement as well. Also launched a scheme called Fairlets. This is a private rental scheme in Fareham. We have a real issue in Fareham with finding accommodation for people who need housing. We have, and I guess it's very good news, we've got almost the highest level of owner occupation of any town in the country. Now, of course, that's very good news for those of us that do own our own homes, but of course for those that don't, it means there's very little housing available for rent, whether it's council housing or private rented housing. So we've launched a scheme called Fairlets, which is to help landlords and help tenants for that very small amount of rented housing that is available in the borough, to help give them confidence and help them set up tenancies. We've also invested in the Wallington flood defence improvements, £70,000. Wallington is prone to flood, and there have been some very significant improvements made there to try and protect the housing in Wallington. And our environmental health partnership, this is a partnership with Gosport Borough Council, with whom we run a number of services to help save money, save your taxes. We run not only environmental health, we run the CCTV system, we also run the building control and building inspection service as well for Gosport and for Portsmouth City Council. But the Environmental Health Partnership got a silver award this year for the performance of that service. We've been looking at a number of council services, always with the aim of improving the service, and we've brought in a consultancy called Vanguard. We don't like to use external consultants if we can help it, but sometimes it does help to bring in outsiders to have a look at how the council runs its services, despite the fact that when we do resident surveys, you tell us you're pretty happy with how the council runs its services, but that is not the whole picture, and we know that we had some very significant issues for users of certain services, benefits, housing repairs, planning applications, car parking, one or two others. So we brought in this consultancy, and what they've effectively done is redesigned all of those services for us. It sounds a little bit trite maybe, but it's about putting the customer, i.e. you or me or whoever's using the service, at the middle, rather than the process and rather than the officers who deliver the service. And what we've been able to do by redesigning how some of those services are delivered is to make sure that we can respond far more quickly. Council housing repairs that were taking weeks, if not months, to deal with are now dealt with in days. Benefit claimants being dealt with in days rather than weeks. So a number of improvements have been made. Customers who are using them seem very satisfied with what's happened. And importantly, to those who pay for these services, who pay their council tax, we've identified already, just in the first year, about £380,000 per year of ongoing savings in those services. And that, of course, kind of leads on to the next point, which is that we've been able to hold the council tax down in Fareham now for 7 years, which is a very long time. The last time we set the current council tax rate was back in 2009. Of course, if you add inflation up over those years, it's something in excess of 20%. So effectively, we've reduced the council tax for the Fareham element of that tax by about 20% in real terms. And the reason we do that, we know it's not expensive, because Fareham actually sets the lowest council tax of almost any town in England, but of course every penny is important, particularly to our older residents who might be on fixed incomes, and their savings really don't generate very much money these days because interest rates are so low, so we do try and look after the pennies as well for them. Daedalus in South Fareham in Stubbington is an important site for us. The site, the old Royal Naval Air Station, is now in the ownership of Fareham Borough Council. Our aim is to create, over the next 10 to 15 years, or at least enable the creation of, because of course public bodies shouldn't be in the business of creating jobs, it's creating the conditions in which the private sector can create the jobs. We're looking to help create around 3,500 new jobs at Daedalus. Those jobs being in the fields of aerospace, aviation and marine. Of course, Daedalus being very well placed with a runway. Just spent £1.5 million putting a new surface down on that runway at Daedalus. It has water access, and the designation of Daedalus as an enterprise zone is a very important designation. It's the only one in Hampshire, and it means that any of those businesses in aviation or aerospace or marine that come onto that site don't have to pay business rates for 5 years, and that's worth around £250,000 on the bottom line of each of those businesses potentially on that site. So of course it's a very attractive place for businesses to come, to expand and to create jobs. And with that in mind, we've also built the Innovation Centre at Daedalus. That was a £5.5 million project. And that is a centre, it's near the new college, which has got 900 students working on, surprise, surprise, aviation, aerospace and marine, advanced engineering. Now we've created a centre there which new businesses can move into. We anticipate it creating about 150 new jobs on the site, so they can move in. They don't have to sign up for leases for 20 years, 30 years. It's easy in, easy out terms where they can come in, set up their businesses and hopefully expand out into the enterprise zone. So that's a very important site for the borough. The picture at the top is the new Innovation Centre, and the one at the bottom shows part of the newly resurfaced runway, which now has a licence from the Civil Aviation Authority as well, which means that significantly larger planes can be brought into Daedalus for maintenance and service, etc. We've got a plan for upgrading our play areas across the borough. We've got consultations running at the moment on a new playground for Stubbington Rec and also at Sedgensworth. Apart from that, Park Lane recreation ground in the centre of Fareham, we opened a new skate park there very recently, which has proved a huge hit with the children there. There's an outdoor gym equipment for adults there, a new children's play area as well. That was a big scheme. It was about £500,000 worth of leisure equipment improvement gone in at Park Lane next to the leisure centre. I mentioned Holly Hill Leisure Centre earlier. That's the first bit of turf was cut for that a couple of days ago. That's going to be opening next summer. It's a £9 million scheme, so a very significant investment. We're conscious of the fact that Fareham Leisure Centre's pool is at capacity. If you want to get a swim in there are so many swimming clubs and other groups using it that you're not probably going to be able to swim whenever you want to. So we're going to double the amount of public pay and swim space in Fareham by having a new 6-lane, 25-metre pool opening at Cold East next summer, and that will have a fitness studio. So if you're familiar with Fareham Leisure Centre, it's going to be something pretty similar, not quite on the same scale, but with similar facilities, and it will be run by the same people that run Fareham Leisure Centre for us, a company called Everyone Active. So they'll be taking that over and opening it next summer. So that's going to be quite a quick build. I mentioned housing earlier, and affordable housing is very important. We're looking to build 138 affordable homes during this year. And one particular area which we're concentrating on is affordable housing or sheltered housing for our older residents. Another statistic that might be of interest to you is that Fareham has a larger proportion of over 85-year-olds than many other towns in England, which of course is very good news for those 85-year-olds plus that are living so long, but it does mean that their housing requirements sometimes become a bit more specialist. And a lot of our housing was built, particularly our sheltered housing for our older residents, was built quite a while ago and was really quite inadequate. So what we've been doing is to start replacing some of those blocks. And the first one we've knocked down was the old